Oconee County Planning Commission, Monday, December the 3rd at 6 p.m. Our first order of business is invocation by our county chaplain.
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you'd like to. Dear Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your many blessings, the blessing of being alive, of you sustaining our lives and giving us opportunities like tonight, to do work for the good of our neighbors and for the good of this community. Pray for your guidance in doing that we would effect your intent, which is for good to be in this land. Help us to be a part of that. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, y'all have before you the minutes of our 11/19 meeting. Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any corrections?
This is good.
I thought they were good. I didn't even notice they were short.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Staff, I see. Do we have any public comment, sir?
You forgot to bring it up. Not for non-agenda items, sir. No, just for the riparian buffers, whatever that.
Okay, we'll go with the staff update.
Certainly. Last meeting, Mrs. McPhail asked, good question that people have asked before is how do you go about setting up a container, like a shipping container as a house? The short answer is it has to meet all current building codes. So even if you truck in a shipping container, it still has to meet codes. If you're gonna make it into a house, it's gonna meet housing codes. It's gonna turn a business, storage, anything like that, it's gotta meet all current building codes. And then Ms. Lyles asked to kind of see the string of like how mobile homes have been set up in the county over the course of time, like more or less, and it's pretty steady. We've had about 600 set up in the last 3 years. That's as much as our computer system will go back in without me digging through paper, compared to about 1,500 houses being built in the last 4 years as well. And those were the two questions y'all had. Mr. Disker did ask me to bring in some more comprehensive plan outlines, and I haven't gotten those yet. So that's my update, sir.
Okay. Item number 7 is Planning Commission 2019 calendar. We already have the January meeting substituted for the 17th. In February, we have George Washington's birthday and President's Day on the 18th, which is the third Monday. Does anyone have objections to having our meeting on the 21st of February?
Is that the Thursday after?
That's the Thursday after that.
Sounds good to me.
So, Jane, Thursday, February 21st, sir?
Yes. Everybody good with that one?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
We can change it at a later date.
If we're gonna be having lots of meetings then, do we have to set that right now? Because if we're gonna be having meetings with,
Comprehensive plan stuff?
Can we not decide then?
That's certainly up to y'all. What I would do is when I write out each dates, I would just skip over these dates on the calendar, and you all can decide it at that point. Certainly, that's completely up to y'all.
How much advance notice do we need to decide on that?
30 days. Right.
Well, you need to publish your annual calendar, which you all adopt at the first meeting of the year. So, yeah, if you're gonna switch something up, it doesn't have to be 30 days notice unless you're having a public hearing or some sort. If you're gonna cancel a meeting, substitute in a new meeting, you generally don't have to have that kind of notice. It could be a special meeting. I would just say, get your general calendar for the year, and if you think you're having too many meetings, you could always cancel one. So you
Okay.
put it up there.
So if we set this and then we see, well,
We're having 4 meetings because of the comp plan and everything else.
we can just cancel that one.
Right.
Okay. I'm good with it then.
All right, so we'll do the 21st of that one. Now, on the May schedule, you have the 27th as, our meeting in May, but the calendar shows it should be the 20th.
All right, 20th then, I'm sorry.
Which is not a holiday.
It's not a holiday
so
or
Yeah, okay.
anything.
May's
Well,
not
then
gonna
we're
be
good,
affected.
look at that, fix something right there.
So, and in September, do the same thing, I guess, as,
5th, that would be
do
the
it the
September
5th
5th.
instead of Labor Day. Which will be the Thursday after that.
Sounds good.
Do you need
So
this
do
as
we
a
need a
motion?
motion or anything, just?
Well, you're gonna present it to me the first year of the meeting,
That's
the
fine.
full calendar.
Okay, I guess I'll wait till first then.
So he has your dates.
Okay. All right, then, let's move on to item number 8, comprehensive plan. Mr. Adams.
Certainly, so I had a pretty productive phone call with consultant groups, Bill and I did, on Friday. And we're trying to square some things away, talk about the formatting of the plan, try to knock it down. I have received a first draft of the population element, which I haven't released to you yet because I wanna give them some feedback first. And it's just blocks of text at this point in time, since formatting seems to be a thing. But I'm just kinda going through, double checking some of the facts, making sure everything's good with them. But it's much more succinct than the last one was. And there are some interesting, interesting things that are coming through. And it's a population element of comp plan, but we've had over 100% increase in the Latino population in the last 10 years in the county, which, you know, that's an interesting thing. And there's just a number of other, as far as where Oconee County sits in relation to the upstate, in relation to South Carolina, in relation to the rest of the country, and how we're faring from a income, housing, population standpoint. That's really what I have now for the comp plan. I'm still waiting to hear back from council regarding the meeting on the 17th of January, the joint meeting. I haven't heard any feedback, positive or negative yet, so that's really my big thing I'm waiting on.
So you've sent the information to them and asked them, okay?
Katie Smith did, yeah, the clerk of council did, yes, sir.
All right, do we have any discussion on this, on the comp plan?
But, just real, would you say we're at schedule, behind schedule, ahead of schedule? Based upon some benchmarks that you had made?
Sure. They kind of gave us a very broad schedule when we first started this out, and I wasn't expecting to get any of the population element until January, and I have it. And then the housing element, I think that they'll have ready in a short while. If it's longer, if it's past New Year's, I'd be surprised. So I think we're running at a pretty good clip here. Also with some of the public meetings we're having, the one that you all did, I've got one more this week with the Oconee Young Professionals, next week with NAACP and another group as well that we're doing. So yeah, I think we're doing pretty good.
What about advertisement? What are we doing for advertising to the public that we're doing this?
Well, as soon as we solidify the date for the 17th meeting, I'll get some newspaper advertising.
But do we not need to advertise that we're doing the comp plan that way? I mean, not just for the 17 meeting, not just for the joint meeting with council, but shouldn't we have some type of advertisement to let everybody know that we're doing this and their input is what we're wanting, and they can come to our meetings or
So you're talking to have like, what are you envisioning? How about that?
just an ad, say, that it would state that we're in the process of the comp plan and we need the public's input because it's their plan, it's not ours.
Won't that be what the community meetings are supposed to be, though?
Yeah, but how they gonna know about the community meetings?
We're gonna advertise once we solidify those dates.
Right, I guess that's what I'm trying to get my head around. Are you talking about kind of having like a year-long advertising campaign that on a regular basis, say like twice a week, we have an advertisement of sorts out? Or are you trying to say, so the ones out in the areas, okay, we know we're gonna have a meeting out in Fairplay in a month, we're gonna advertise for that? I guess I can work around whatever you all tell me to, I just need to kind of get a vision of what you all are thinking.
I would think you just advertise for the individual meetings. I think just running something week after week after week
It's a waste of money.
is a waste of money.
It's bare.
The words I were looking for.
And does it,
We had 50 people out there, it'd be something.
does it have to be an ad or can it be a news release?
Oh, we have, I believe, WGOG and Upstate have both run things about the comprehensive plan, but I could do some more news releases to them. Also, the Kiwi Courier and the,
Westminster.
thank you.
Yeah, well, that's more line what I'm saying.
So press releases, certainly, I can work on some press
Let everybody
releases.
know what's going on,
Especially when it's in some of those regional areas.
yes.
Wasn't there something with Facebook that was gonna be set up too? Or
I'm still
something
waiting to get
along
some
those lines?
feedback
Okay,
on that. I
Okay.
have asked though. And, Mr. Reed was just mentioning, we could put something on the website as well, if someone came to it. So, like on the front page versus where the comp plan stuff is.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Item number 9.
Oh, riparian protections. Okay, so I got 2 phone calls as soon as I sent out the backup material. Why are we discussing the Lake Overlay District?
Public comment first?
Well, I'll
What?
let him do his thing and then
Okay.
we'll go.
So there's two parts of this. One is the riparian protection, and the other part of this is the stormwater part that we kind of spoke on at the same time. So we do have riparian protection already in the county. That already exists. And as far as Lake Overlay District goes, if you want to expand it out into the rest of the county, you're certainly welcome to. We do have a little bit of framework for that, and there are some other entities who have some suggestions on it as well.
All right, we'll go ahead and go with the public comment. Mr. Smith, you're first.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Smith, and I want to comment on the riparian discussion. Thank you, Gwen, for bringing this matter up before the Planning Commission. It's long overdue for the Planning Commission's attention, not only because of the lack of equal standards for commercial development and agriculture interests, but also to protect our natural resources for future generations. I would like to suggest that if this topic moves forward, a subcommittee be formed similar to what was done with the BZA notification process. I am not a fan of subcommittees. I have seen too many of them fail because the goals were not clearly stated and/or the members had not accepted the need to achieve these goals. However, the BZA process seemed to be successful and moved through your commission quickly, thereby saving you time and the planning department undue administrative effort. The result was a recommendation to the county council that was well received, passed, and seems to be working effectively. If you decide to form a subcommittee, I would like to suggest that you involve someone from Folks and AQD. However, also include someone from the Agriculture Advising Board, as well as someone from the Commercial Development side and Planning Commission. The Planning Department should provide oversight and administrative support. I'm sure Brad and/or Mike could help with that commercial development person. I have taken the initiative and contacted the first two groups, Folks and AQD, and have their support and interest in a person to contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Tom?
Tom Markovich for the record. I question the pursuit of buffers beyond which already exist for a number of reasons. One, trying to draft something like this. I mean, United States government and the Supreme Court have been trying to iron out what jurisdictional waters are since 1972, and they ain't figured it out yet, okay? So we keep going back and forth on jurisdictional waters. The other thing is this, 25 feet buffer, both sides of a stream. We're talking about 6 acres per mile of creeks. I don't know how many miles of creeks there are in Oconee County. I know there's 189 named creeks, according to DNR. I know that you can rarely drive down a mile of road and not see some creeks somewhere. And there's over 1,200 miles of road in the county. So do the math and figure out how many acres we're taking out of use. The other thing to think about is this. Appalachian Mountains, oldest mountain range in the world. Been eroding 30 million years. I missed your last meeting. I was riding to the beach, across land that was formed by erosion. The farmland that exists in this county exists because of erosion. Now, I'm not saying that we blatantly abused the property at all, and I take precautions in my business to make sure that I put silt fences everywhere. But there's a big difference in managing stormwater and silt fences and creating these buffers that are going to eat up enormous amounts of land in this county. We've already got Lake Kiwi that's covered, I don't know how many acres of land that's not usable anymore. Lake Jocassee, Lake Hartwell. We have a lot of things, and we have a lot of federal government in this county. Now we want to decide, okay, let's start taking up acreage and put it out of use by creating a buffer. I think it is not, I think there's other ways to manage stormwater protections without having to do the buffers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, open it up for discussion here. Well, I think we need to do something. I'm not sure about the buffers or whatever, but you gotta remember that our creeks and rivers and streams all run into these lakes that we have, which are man-made for the most part. But if they get contaminated, all that water is gonna go right into the lakes and contaminate the lakes. And if we're not gonna do something to protect those, why have this buffer at all, the lake buffer? Why even have that if we're not gonna protect the streams where all the stuff can run from the streams in the lake? We're not gonna worry about it running off somebody's property. It's already doing it in the creeks and things. So we need to do something. Silt fence might be the answer to I don't know what requirements we have on it now, but I'm not a fan of clear cutting property. I think it's wrong to clear cut property. I think they should leave some trees there. Those trees do a lot of good. They give us breathing air. They keep the topsoil in place for the most part. And if we clear cut property and we have a big storm, then there goes all the topsoil and everything else running down into the creeks, running down into the lakes, contaminating everything. So we need to do something, but I'm not sure what it is, so.
Are you done?
Go ahead.
I think that I think when we talk about this, sure, it's a conversation to be had. The lakes themselves, I don't believe have any conversation in this. And I say that because the lake, at least with regard to Lake Kiwi, already has buffers in place and zoning in place that everywhere there is a creek that goes into Kiwi, there is a wetland that's protected and attached called an environmental zone that cleans that water as it goes in. I mean, that's what wetlands are for, and that's why waters run through those wetland areas, is to stop that erosion and things like that before it gets all the way to the lake. So the lake itself has already put protections in place, and it's already set. So I think the conversation then goes back to, okay, creeks. And at that point, what size creek are we talking about? Are we talking about named creeks? Are we talking about every spring head that pops up and is now become top water? At some point, this goes back to that balance that I'm always saying, where are we overstepping our bounds as a government entity into someone's private backyard? And if it's a big waterway, I agree. I like the woodsy areas. But at the same time, if I owned a woodsy area with a creek running through the middle of it, I might want to turn it into my own little park. Am I destroying the creek? No, I'm dressing it up as a park. So I don't think the lake should be brought in. If it's a conversation, it should be a conversation about the streams. Maybe it's a conversation regarding, hey, you've destroyed the stream, or you've moved the stream, or you've done something that changes that up. But I guess my only point really is that the lakes already have zoning things around them, environmental zones, where the creeks go into the waters.
Yeah, and I mean, y'all, I'm gonna stick with I support something. I don't know what the right answer is, but I also know that for every mile of interstate, that's 100 acres of land that's covered over. So, you need to do something to protect the water. You need to do something, or what's left of the farmable land will be at the beach. All the good soil's already down there. So what we have left is red clay. So if you clear cut land, and don't do anything to keep that soil from washing into the creeks and rivers, you are going to end up with all the red clay at Myrtle Beach, and we'll be farming on gravel, I guess, or granite. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know about creek, stream heads. I know if we keep depleting the groundwater, we're not going to have any more spring heads. So that's not going to be an option either. I just think we need to do something to protect flowing water that is going downstate from carrying the dirt out of Oconee County to the lower part of the state.
I think you made a real good point that maybe differentiates a developer from a farmer, is that the farmer doesn't want to lose that topsoil. That's why they created the swells years ago, to hold that farmland and hold that topsoil in place and retain that water on their property rather than just getting it away from them. Whereas a developer might not care so much about the topsoil, and it is just that red clay. Maybe there is a differential there to some degree. I don't think that we should just put a blanket across the board, hey, you got surface water, you got to stay away from it. Because I think that a farmer is going to want to protect that topsoil to begin with.
Well, and we do. I mean, and agriculture has buffer zones. I mean, we have riparian buffers along every creek. We have meadow strips that run across fields. We do terraces. Yeah, we do, but other people don't. And so, but yet a forester is required to leave a buffer. So why isn't a commercial developer required to leave a buffer?
And maybe that's where that conversation goes, is towards the developer.
And maybe, would it be
development.
possible to have somebody from the Soil and Water Conservation District come in and talk to us, do some kind of presentation? They're the ones that study the soils. They know the soils in this county.
I can ask.
That would be perhaps a good way to have someone come in and.
If we're gonna get some outside people, let's get some forestry people. Our forestry people here in South Carolina is the best in the nation.
Yeah, that would be another one.
Did you contact Heather? I think we had,
We talked about it back and forth, but I hadn't gotten with her because I was trying to work on this, but I can get in touch with Heather Ramey, that's it.
Heather Ramey. And Eddie Martin might, I mean, Heather's really busy, this time of the year. I don't know how quickly you can get them in here, but there are several people I think that can, and certainly somebody in forestry would be an excellent, maybe both of them, because the Forest Service, I know they have restrictions. They are required by law to leave a 30-foot buffer on either side of a stream, any water source. I mean, except a pond. I don't think if it's a private pond, they say anything, but I think I believe it's 30 feet. I know they have a buffer that they're required to honor.
DNR recommends 30 for everyone. I don't know what the requirements are. DHEC recommends 50 as far as the buffer goes. So what it sounds like is you all would like for me to get some other people who specialize in buffers around streams to come speak. Is that kind of the feeling I'm getting here? Is that correct?
Right, and perhaps somebody that would know, like, is there a size delineation for creeks where it would be important?
They're rated. There's a
Okay.
couple of them. So
Does DHEC already have standards as far as like how close to a water source a septic tank can be?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so kind of to dovetail into this, we spoke about last meeting about stormwater utility. And myself and Mr. Root, we looked at stormwater utilities once required, and I'm not any smarter after looking at all the material. I spoke to Pickens County, Scotty Ferguson, her division over Pickens County about it. I've got maps and all sorts of legislation. I think that it's worthwhile for us to look into as far as what may be required of Oconee County in the future. Not 100% sure that 75,000 or 80,000 that you were talking about, Mr. Kisker, is on the table as far as what we need to do.
I think I'm smarter also, or stupider, or I'm smarter after having delved into it probably about 6 hours since I watched last meeting and just gathered some time. I thought I knew something about the EPA regulations, phase 1, phase 2, South Carolina state law that works with it. Having studied it, I realized I don't know that much about it and need to know a whole lot more. I thought it was kind of a simple hit a population threshold and we're going to be working with stormwater management plans. It's not as simple as that. And we're not going to have, I think after the census, the whole county as an MS4, but we'll have an area. And how that all works out, I'm not exactly sure. And how that'll affect the riparian issue, I'm not exactly sure. But I think if we're going to pull in some experts who deal with this daily, someone from DHEC in that department would be a good speaker as well. And I think all these things play into one another. So if we can orchestrate getting to all these folks here, that would be helpful to everyone, included.
Be great.
Well, I stayed at Holiday Inn Express last night. So I feel very smart. I get, it's like, where did this come from? Is there a problem? Is it a widespread problem? Is it an isolated problem? And are we trying to solve an isolated problem with a widespread, thus paint everything? And we seem to keep kind of going down this road of, okay, and it seems like most, 9 times out of 10, it's an isolated problem that we try to solve the entire problem. And I'm all about preservation, and I'm all about saving the lake, and I'm all about saving the streams and this and that. And it's always the big bad developer. But there's big bad farmers, there's big bad foresters, and we can't fix everything by painting these broad brushes over this entire county. So I just think we need to, take a deep breath and gather the information. But we can't, the old saying, you can't fix stupid. We can't fix everything. And if this is a widespread problem, let's take a look at it. If it's an isolated problem, let's deal with the isolation, deal with the isolated person or problem and not, make up these rules and overlays and take private land from people or let them, not let them do stuff. And it just seems like we've gone down this road with some things and we kick it around for 2 or 3 months and then it just either fades away or we try and creates, I mean, I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, the EPA came out 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And, you know, the little culverts alongside the roads, those were navigable waters. I've never seen boats go down the side of the road, but the EPA said those are navigable waters. And then we get back into the legal stuff, and then Mr. Roots could tell us, we just spent 3 months doing something we can't do. So I just, you know, again, are we dealing with an isolated problem, big problem, you know, and it's always big bad developer, but, you know, there's other big bad other entities out there as well. That's all I got to say.
If we, do implement something widespread, there'll be a considerable, staff, requirement. I mean, how do we monitor all this?
Be monitored during the permit?
I would imagine we do it the same way, like, let's just, just conversation, let's say if we're just gonna use the lake overlay district language for all the rivers and streams of the county. It would just be through during the permitting process, and then when you make your neighbor angry process. That's when it comes up. But I can see if there's people available to come speak on the buffer and the riparian protection and stormwater,
And
issues.
I know that, for me, one of the things that just because I'm a science person, if you listen carefully to people reporting problems in places like Greenville, where you have neighborhoods that never flooded before, but they're suddenly flooding now. And part of the reason that they're flooding now is because they might have a brand-new subdivision, or they might have a brand-new Walmart parking lot above them, where you have substantially more runoff than they've ever had before. And those are the things, so I'm thinking that perhaps someone from the Greenville area where you've had, because this county's not going backwards. I don't think people are leaving here as fast as they're coming here. So I think in general, our county is going to continue to increase in population. And our job as the planning commission is not to wait until it's a problem and then go, oh crap, how do we fix this? Our job is to plan so that these sorts of things do not happen, or at least do not become as big a problem as they could be until after it's too late to make changes. And I think that's where stormwater, becomes huge, much larger of an issue. The greater the population, the greater the issue with stormwater. So, because you're talking then about impermeable surfaces, not little buffers with, you wish you had, ferns on it instead of nothing. But, so that, that would be another possibility, perhaps if you can't get somebody local, Greenville. My guess would be his experience, some issues from growth. I don't know that for sure, but.
I think that's a good point. I think maybe we're looking at a problem here, and maybe we should just, when we meet with these other people, discuss ways that we can just protect our natural resources.
Yeah, I think our job
as
is
opposed
to
to-
plan so that we're ready when things begin to go wrong.
As
not-
opposed to just individual circumstances and things. Is there something that we can do that's a simple way to protect some of those streams and water sources?
Have we had any issues, like he was asking if it's an isolated issue, or if this is a big problem? Or are we just,
No, I've gotten calls about my neighbors cut down to the river before, it just so happens Ms. McPhail brought it up, but I've gotten complaints about, people get surges of silt in the lake before. I've heard of any number of things from just neighbors cutting down to the water line in the past, and we don't have anything. I sent them to DHEC, and DHEC's like, they don't really have very much either for the individual citizen. So this is an ongoing.
Is that dealing with the lake, or is that dealing with a creek?
Creeks, cutting down with creeks, not the lake. But I'm saying that sometimes when people cut down upstream of relatively near one of the lakes, even the wetlands don't keep everything out. When we get these big gully washers, I mean, there's not a silt fence in the world, there's not a wetland in the world that'll handle the volume of water that pumps out during one of these major storm events we get. So, yes, it's been an issue that I've had no ability to address. And as far as the Lake Kiwi goes, and it is clean and relatively protected, Duke has invested, $1 million in trying to keep it clean from septic tanks and things of that nature. And I know that's not buffers, but there's Walhalla is going to pull drinking water out of it. Seneca pulls drinking water out of it. Greenville pulls drinking water out of it. Pickens County pulls drinking water out of it. So there's interest in keeping Kiwi, regardless of how many houses are around it, keeping it as clean and state as possible because that keeps everyone's water bill down. So it's a used water body from that respect.
I think, again, probably 10, 15 years ago, I keep looking at Tom, but the last commission study of Lake Kiwi that I know that folks did about how clean the lake is and where it's, the most contaminated, least contaminated spots. And it maybe Mr. Smith knows, but they commissioned their own study. The most contaminated area around Kiwi was around Kiwi Key, where they have sewer. And the other area, I believe, was around Cane Creek.
Yeah,
All the other areas were clean, where there were septics. And, and they kept pushing for, revised septics, and eventually they got, going from 50 to 75 feet. But where the most contaminated area was where there was sewer. And I think that a lot of that might have had to do with, again, lift stations busting or bursting or what have you. Maybe the, since they could build closer to the lake, they didn't have the septics, contamination from fertilizers and what have you. So again, we kind of go down one road, we go down another road, bringing somebody in, no offense to Greenville, I know we're on the record, but I just spent Saturday on Woodruff Road. I don't want anybody from Greenville that had anything to do with Woodruff Road up here. Gracious. But, it's just, I think we need to tread carefully and make sure that, again, what we do doesn't violate, seems like we come up with all this stuff and then all of a sudden we can't do it because we're violating. EPA, DHEC, HOAs, we got everybody on our backs looking at us, and I just got a text from county, we're now, Coney County is gonna implement new procedures after the first year. We're gonna have builder meetings for new procedures. Either I'm getting old or I'm getting tired of told what to do, but, it's just, we gotta tread lightly, in my opinion. Again, all about preservations. No offense to the farming community, but I bet most of these farms had trees on them before they were farms, so they could get out there and grow a crop. So at one point, all those trees were removed so we could grow crops. But again, keeps coming back to the big bad developers.
And we don't need to do anything we can't enforce. We don't need it to be writing policy just to be writing policy. And we don't need to be overstepping into someone else's. If DHEC already has standards and they're just not enforcing them, then that's their problem. We don't need to be writing other standards that are on exact same thing as DHEC just so that we can enforce them because they don't enforce them. We just need to go to them and say, we have a problem with you not enforcing your standards in our county.
But DHEC doesn't have commercial standards, correct? They have forestry and.
I don't believe they have private standards for anything under an acre. I think that's correct. But
Sure.
I don't believe they have any standards for the individual. I think for commercial they do. For agricultural, we know they do. I believe for individuals who are disturbing less than an acre, I don't believe there's that. But let's get somebody here who knows exactly everything before we start doing that. So I'll work on getting someone from Soil and Water, Forestry, DHEC, and perhaps another stormwater other than Greenville to come in here, and I think we have that, so.
Tom, you had something?
When you start pulling permits to be able to clear a piece of property with DHEC, it's true, it would have to be greater than an acre. The commercial has nothing to do with it. Individuals have nothing to do with it. It all comes under the EPA rules. It all came out under the Phase 2 of the Clean Water Act. And so, But also, the other thing to keep in mind is, especially in commercial projects, even if by some chance somebody did clear and they got some silt while they were doing some grubbing out or whatever they were doing, if it's a commercial project, sooner or later, there's gonna be a detention pond on that property, no matter what. Because they're not gonna let you get a building permit without a without a detention pond. You're not gonna be able to build that building, build that parking lot without putting a detention pond on it. So, I mean, that detention pond is more likely to catch more erosion or anything else and runoff from the parking lot and the building and everything else than you're ever gonna accomplish with the buffer. Again, it's about how we're managing specific things that are affecting the water. It's not about how buffers are going to influence the overall thing, in my opinion.
Anything further? Do we have any old business? New business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you, guys.